Umagyanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshur येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णा प्रस्ताय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश मारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचलं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं हरि ओम तत्सत् Hare Krishna. So I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so I think we are all have come up to Canto 6th, and chapter 10 is what we are discussing today. And chapter 10 is entitled The Battle Between Demigods and Vṛtrāsura. So I'll just share my screen. Everybody can see that, yeah? Perfect. Thank you. Right. Okay. So this chapter, interestingly, Srila Prabhupada has not written many purports on the verses. There are few of the purports which Prabhupada has written, and I think to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, it's good to churn the purports of Srila Prabhupada. That way we can get more better understanding rather than just going through the verses. So in this chapter, I think somebody has raised a hand. Sadhvi.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Is it Canto 5 or Canto 6?
Canto 6.
Thank you.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you. As far as I'm aware, is that right, Dharmendra Prabhu? Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. It's my mistake. It's my mistake. I should have made that correction. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So in this chapter, the summary of the chapter which Prabhupada has explained is that Indra obtains the body of the Dichi Muni, and they prepare a thunderbolt from the Dichi's bones, and then there's a fight between Vṛtrāsura and demigods, which is towards the later part of the chapter. Now, Vishnu, Supreme Personality of Godhead, orders the demigods to approach the Dichi Muni and beg for his body, because that's how they want to take his bones and then make a thunderbolt. And the Dichi Muni, a saintly person, because he wanted to hear the principles of religion from the demigods, he just jokingly he refuses initially to give up his body, but then eventually he agrees to give it up, and he gives up his uh, body as in the he merges his gross body made of 5 elements, as it's going to be mentioned in the first in the verses in the chapter. Now it's interesting, when we come to those verses we will discuss that, but it's only mentioned that the Rishi Muni gives up his gross body and then he gives his soul at the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, I was thinking, why just mention gross body? Why not subtle body? Because when we are talking about body, we talk about gross body and subtle body both. But if you see, subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and ego. And obviously, when we say ego, we refer it to, in the material world, we refer as false ego. But in devotee's life, for a devotee, for a saintly person, they have already given up their material conception, their mental concoction of life. So mind and intelligence is already, they have given up in this life. It's only the gross part of their body which they give up when they leave the world. So that's how it's mentioned about, only about his gross body here in the summary. So this is how it starts. I thought we will also just do a recap just to understand how we have come to this. I'm sure you all have been studying this, so it'll be good to just have a quick recap. And meanwhile, if in between, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to maybe ask on the chat, or you can just unmute and ask. Or we can also go towards the question towards the end of it. Maybe we can just go through the whole thing in next 30 minutes or so, and then we can have questions after that. So, so it all starts a few chapters before, which you all must have gone through, where Indra disrespects his spiritual master Brihaspati, as it shows that apparently he got puffed up, and then does not respect his spiritual master. So that's where it all begins. So it's also important to understand when we talk about these morals and values, to how to be respectful to guru, to Vaishnavas, to sadhus. So and that can happen from somebody like Indra also. So it all begins from that point to where we are going to come today, to up to this battle. And then after that, uh, Indra has this priest called Vishvarupa, who's a qualified Brahmana. And Indra gets upset on Vishvarupa because Vishvarup was not offering respects to demigods, but he was offering these prayers to the demons. So again, it is said that Vishwarupa was a Brahman, so this is like a Brahma Hatya, which Indra does. So the first offense was disrespecting the spiritual master, and second was doing a Brahma Hatya. So the second thing happens, and then after that, Twista, the father of Vishwarupa, he makes a great sacrifice because he wants to kill Indra, and that's how Vṛtrāsura appears as a result of that, which we'll be seeing in this chapter. So now I thought we'll just, as we said, we will go through these purports of what Prabhupada has mentioned. So the chapter begins where Shukdev Goswami is saying that after instructing Indra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead instructs, and then King Parikshit, who is following the Lord's instructions, he is telling to King Parikshit that the demigods approach Dadichi, who is the son of Atharva. So they approach Dadichi upon the instruction of Supreme Personality of Godhead to asking for his body, because now they want to prepare for a war, and now he want to ask for his body too, because they want to make a thunderbolt from his bones. So this is how they go through, and then the demigods go and ask to the Rishi Muni about to give up his body. Now, this particular verse which we have chosen, because this is where Prabhupada has started mentioning on his purport. This is the sixth verse of this chapter, where it is said. I'll just read the translation and then we can read the purport here. It says that those who are too self-interested beg something from others, not knowing of others' pains. But if the beggar knew the difficulty of the giver, he would not ask for anything. Similarly, who is able to give charity does not know the beggar's difficulty, for otherwise he would not refuse to give the beggar anything he might want as charity. So somebody can read this purport and we can discuss on that point what Prabhupada is mentioning here. Anybody would like to read this? There are a few lines here.
I would like to read.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, so this verse, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
This verse describes two people, one who gives charity and one who begs for it. A beggar should not ask charity from a person who is in difficulty. Similarly, one who is able to give charity should not deny a beggar. These are the moral instructions of the Shastra. Chanakya Pandit says, san nimite varam tyago vinashe niyate sati. Everything within this material world will be destroyed, and therefore one should use everything for good purposes. If one is advanced in knowledge, he must always be prepared to sacrifice anything for a better cause. At the present moment, the entire world is in a dangerous position under the spell of a godless civilization. The Krishna consciousness movement needs many exalted, learned persons who will sacrifice their lives to revive God consciousness throughout the world. We, therefore, invite all men and women advanced in knowledge to join the Krishna consciousness movement and sacrifice their lives for the great cause of reviving the God consciousness of human society.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. So yeah, so
You're
here,
welcome.
thank you. Yeah, so here it's very interesting. Prabhupada is mentioning this is in regards to what demigods have replied to the Dichi Muni. And here Prabhupada is mentioning that there are two types of people. When in the verse it's saying that one is a beggar and other one is a person who's giving charity. So it's interesting that if you see, there's so much lack of understanding. Now here it says, if a beggar should not ask charity from a person who is in difficulty, because in the verse it says, those who are too self-interested beg something from others, not knowing of others' pain. So what's saying is that um, if we understand each other's pain, if we understand each other's situation, because if the beggar knew the difficulty of the giver, he would not ask for anything. And similarly, who is able to give charity does not know the beggar's difficulty, for otherwise he would not refuse to give the beggar anything he might want as charity. So it's both ways. The beggar and the giver, they both have, there's a lack of understanding, it's mentioned here. And Prabhupada very interestingly mentioned this is a Chanakya Pandit's moral instructions, where it says, ultimately everything within this material world will be destroyed, and therefore one should use everything for good purposes. So, and then it says, if one is advanced in knowledge, he must always be prepared to sacrifice anything for a better cause. So, Prabhupada is teaching how one can prepare to become selfless, understanding that the temporary nature of the world, the tendency is actually there to hold back on things, even if sometimes we are able to provide something to others. But the tendency is to hold back because everybody is fearful of losing something in the world. So that's why we see so much of um, like kind of tug of war between everyone, because somebody can give but they don't want to give, and and somebody asks from somebody who doesn't understand that it could be the other person could be in a painful situation to give. But ultimately, because in Krishna consciousness, when we start our journey, we receive so much in Krishna consciousness. We receive so much from devotees. We receive so much from everybody around us that there could be a tendency to be in the situation to be always in a receiving position. But the real spiritual life begins when we switch to giving, because ultimately it's all about giving, it's not about taking, you know but that's the switch we have to make, because the tendency could be that if we are in Krishna consciousness, we are here because automatically we get a lot of mercy from Krishna, we get a lot of mercy from devotees, we get a lot of blessings, we get a lot of things. And that mood can become our mood of always in the mood of taking. We might think that Krishna consciousness is how much I can get. Of course, we are here in the mood of receiving, but that receiving mood should not be should not be in a materialistic way of taking. So there's a difference when we are receiving. We receive as a, of course, Prabhupada teaches us to be like a beggar. We should receive like a beggar, but the real Krishna consciousness begins when we contribute rather than we consume. You know, our contribution is will please Krishna, and that will be our sacrifice. You know, that will be what we are ready to sacrifice. So it's important that we switch that consciousness and prepare ourselves, although it's not easy. Whenever we feel like giving something, Krishna will, or some kind of test will come where it will be beyond our comfort level or comfort zone, that we'll say, oh ouch, I can't give that much. I thought I can give a little bit and then it will be fine. But then it says you must be always be prepared to sacrifice anything, which is, of course, which is the ideal situation. But we all have to work towards in Krishna consciousness. This is how we will become Krishna conscious. This is how we will understand the mood of Krishna consciousness, because this is how Krishna teaches us to give. Krishna gives and sacrifice. So Prabhupada specifically says the Krishna consciousness movements needs many exalted, learned persons who will sacrifice their lives to revive God consciousness throughout the world. So it's about what we can sacrifice. Krishna has given everything. Everybody has got something. I mean, we can always think that what can I give, or what can I do, or what can I offer. But somehow, Krishna gives that intelligence for us to understand that we all have something unique. Prabhupada says we all have something unique which we can offer. Doesn't When we say giving, doesn't always have to be in materialistic way of giving. It doesn't have to be some, of course, money and those things are also there, but it can be much more. Prabhupada is talking about sacrificing the life. So giving yourself, giving of oneself, giving energy, giving our resources, giving our time, whatever way we can do. But that is will be of benefit to us. So that is what Krishna consciousness is about. So this is how Prabhupada is explained here. So I thought it's an interesting point uh, about giving, about sacrificing. So from here we will go to the next text, where we hear from the Dichi Muni. He will start speaking from next verse. Let's see what we come to on the purport. So we are coming where the Rishi Muni is just talking to the demigods now, and he's saying that I just wanted to hear from you about the religious principles, and that is why I was refusing to give my body. But now he says, although my body is dear to me, I must give it up. So he is now ready to give up his body, because he says ultimately body is temporary. At some point we have to leave the body, but he was in that consciousness that he was not. He was prepared to give it at this point of time. Okay, I can see a point in the chat. I think Kusuma Mataji has mentioned that sometimes when on book distribution, we may ask for a donation from a homeless person because it is said that he will get pious credits. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, we are talking about sacrifice. And in fact, somebody who can sacrifice which they are short of, which they have difficulty. So this way, if they can do it, of course, if they can do it willingly and not in a grudging mood, then definitely they do get benefits. They do get bias credits. Thank you, Matsi. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so yeah, so here then he continues. Muni continues speaking, and he says that one who has no compassion for humanity in its suffering and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for higher causes of religious principles is certainly pitied by the immovable being. So now he is convinced, and he is mentioning, giving this message that the sacrifice is required, and of course, the ultimate sacrifice is sacrificing oneself, sacrificing one's body. And this is, we're coming to this text 9. I'll just quickly read the translation where the Rachimuni says, if one is unhappy to see the distress of other living beings and happy to see their happiness, his religious principles are appreciated as imperishable by exalted persons who are considered pious and benevolent. So there are a few lines from this purport. If anyone would like to read this, please.
I can read it.
Thank you.
One generally follows different types of religious principles or performs various occupational duties according to the body given to him by the modes of material nature. In this verse, however, real religious principles are explained. Everyone should be unhappy to see others in distress and happy to see others happy. Atmavat sarvabhuteshu. One should feel the happiness and distress of others as his own. It is on this basis that the Buddhist religious principles of non-violence, ahimsa parma dharma, is established. We feel pain when someone disturbs us, and therefore we should not inflict pain upon other living beings.
Thank you so much for this explanation. Yeah, so it's a very important point here. Uh, as previously we were discussing about sacrifice. Now here it's very important in the text. He's saying that one should be unhappy to see the distress of other living beings and happy to see their happiness. We were discussing this verse on Sankirtan festival, and Pragosh Prabhu was giving a class on this verse, and he mentioned that there are 2 points here mentioned. It's mentioned. First is one is unhappy to see the distress of other living beings, which said that he mentioned that yes, it is to a certain degree that is also possible. A lot of time when we see people see somebody in distress, naturally people become affected by that, little bit unhappy or also in distress to a certain degree. But the difficult part, he says, is to see them happy in their happiness. So that is also another level that one should also not only one should be unhappy to see their distress, but also to be happy in their unhappiness. So here Prabhupada is mentioning that the real religious principles are explained in this particular verse, where everyone should be unhappy to see others in distress and happy to see others happy, and one should feel the happiness and distress of others as his own. Um, and then this is one of the Buddhist principles Prabhupada is mentioning, non-violence, that ahimsa parma dharma. We have always heard that we feel pain when someone disturbs us, and therefore we should not inflict pain upon other living beings. Now, there is one way which Prabhupada explains about Vaishnav. When we say Vaishnav, he says, how do you identify a Vaishnav? And that is said as para dukha dukhi. So somebody should be really uh, others distress. Somebody should be distressed to see in others in distress, and that's how Krishna consciousness devotees spread Krishna consciousness or preach Krishna consciousness or do book distribution or spread about Krishna consciousness to others, because they know that by this way, because others are already in distress, and this is the way to relieve by giving Krishna consciousness, by giving message of Krishna, by giving message of Bhagavad Gita, by giving Krishna consciousness in the real pure way. uh, People can be relieved from their distress. There's so much of suffering, there's so much of pain, and if we are free from pain, this is how devotees think that we can free others from the pain by giving them this real gift of Krishna consciousness. So that's how Dadichi Muni is explaining that, because he is mentioning in this point where he is ready to give up his body because he can see that this is the requirement for the demigods. This is what they need, um, and that's why he's mentioning on these principles. In this purport, actually, Prabhupada has mentioned few more points. He also said that he's mentioning about the Christian philosophy, which he always mentioned, that Jesus Christ said that thou shalt not kill. So he said one should not continue killing, at the same time claim them to be a religious person. So somebody who's a religious person does not get involved in violence or killing. So that's why it's important. That's what how one should be compassionate. And few more points Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport. He also mentioned about how Prabhupada mentioned Bhagavad Gita verse where it says 14th chapter verse. He said that it should be understood that all species of life are made possible by birth in this material nature, and I'm seed-giving father. So uh, Prabhupada is mentioning about Krishna's role as seed-giving father, and how every living being, whether it is human being or plant or tree or any living being is part and parcel of Krishna. So that violence, that principle of non-violence applies to all. So this way, uh, Prabhupada is explaining on that. So, and then we carry on to the next one. Okay. In this particular verse, Tadishi Muni is continuing and he's saying that, of course, uh, he says, this body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me. The spirit soul, it is usable only for short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must all be engaged for the benefits of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. So again, he's saying how we should serve through our body for the benefit of others. There is some lines from the purport which I have mentioned here. If anybody would like to read this,
I can read, Prabhuji.
thank you.
Thank you. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. This is the mission of life, one's own body and the bodies of his friends and relatives, as well as one's own riches and everything else one has, should be engaged for the benefit of others. This is the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna, thank you. Yes. So, yeah, this is how Mahaprabhu is asking us to engage in Krishna consciousness. In fact, Prabhupada also mentioned a verse in this purport, Bharat Bhumi Te Manushya Janma Lo Jar Janma Sarthak Kara Kari Karo Paro Upkar. So he said that one who has taken birth in the land of Bharatvarsh or India, of course, that time Bharatvarsh was for the whole world, so should make his life successful and work for the benefit. So Janm Sarthak Kara Kari, so make our life successful, and then Karo Paro Upkar. So to for the welfare of others. This life is about serving others. It's all about for the benefit of others. Because as we all know, eating, sleeping, defending, mating, everybody does that for their own benefits, and time passes like that, and the life goes. But what's the value of a life which has not been used for the benefit of others? Whether it is with life, whether it's wealth, whether it is intelligence and words, whatever way we can use, we have to engage this for the and again that is comes the principle of Krishna consciousness, the principle of sharing Krishna consciousness, being ourselves perfect in our Krishna consciousness, and then helping others for in their Krishna consciousness. This is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is. This is what Srila Prabhupada's teachings are, that this is how we help others. When we say para upkar, upkar means benefiting and helping others, and this is the topmost help, giving Krishna consciousness. We can help others in through, it could be giving somebody food or clothes or shelter, but those things are not going to give a permanent relief to all the problems. But ultimately, understanding this message, understanding these teachings, and sharing them with them will be eventually benefited, because we can ourselves feel that we ourselves have got some benefit. That's why we are all here. We are all hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam because we know it's a topmost benefit. That's why we invest our time, we invest our energies, because we can feel that benefit to a certain degree. So if we are feeling it, and if we want to increase that benefit for ourselves, we want to increase that bliss in our life. That increases by sharing. Material life, anything we share, it will decrease. But spiritual Krishna consciousness multiplies. The more we give, the more we get. That's how Krishna consciousness principle works, and that's how we can. Obviously, we all have tried and tested. It's very simple. We all can do it, and we can all can feel it. So that's why this is how to make our life perfect, by making this as our duty, not just an option or not just a optional service or something. It's a duty. It should be. Mahaprabhu says it should be duty to perform these activities, which is going to benefit others. So like this, Dadachi Muni is in that mood where he's ready to give up his body. That's the final, of course, sacrifice to, because that will, he thinks this way it will uh, benefit the demigods. And then we'll just move to the next one. Okay, now here, this is actually the translation of the verse. If anybody would like to read the translation, this is the 11th verse.
I can read. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vanita Mataji. Sri Shukdev Goswamiji said, Dadichi Muni, the son of Atharva, thus resolved to give his body to the service of the demigods. He placed himself, the spirit soul, as the lotus feet and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this way, gave up his gross material body made of 5 elements. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anis. So it's interesting here now. This is a stage where Dadachi Muni has agreed to give his body now to the service of demigods, and this is how his the spirit soul at the feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this way he gave up the gross material body made of 5 elements, as we were discussing in the summary, that how he gives up his gross body made of 5 elements. And it's interesting because what Prabhupada is mentioning here in the purport is that it's it's not just giving up the body physically, but also Dharachi Muni had already prepared himself mentally to give up his body. He was not in that bodily conception. He had already given up, like Bhakti Tirth Maharaj also says in his book that die before you die. So he was not mentally, he was not in the bodily conception. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that when one overcomes the material body through cultivation of spiritual knowledge and devotional service, one can revive his own position and thus engage in the service of Lord. So even before giving up the physical body, one can also have that conception of giving up the body, because then it is the conception of I am, which Prabhupada always mentioned, that we have to come to that stage where we understand I am not the body, I am the soul. That if somebody has come up to that understanding, that means they have given up the body already. Because if I'm not the body, if the devotee has understood that platform, then devotee is not in the bodily conception. So whether the body is there or not there, the devotees at that level don't feel that that material conception. Of course, come to that level, it requires a lot of cultivation of spiritual knowledge to engage a lot of in devotional service. But that is the ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness, to come to that understanding of our real position, not just superficially or not just theoretically, but practically, when we are practicing Krishna consciousness. Because to say one is one thing, but of course, to go through that realization is another thing, to have that understanding in a true sense, where one is convinced of one's own identity. Yeah. Okay. Now, of course, is after that there are some verses where Tadashi Muni, how he went in trance, how he disconnected from his all material bonds, and how he um, in fact, it's mentioned in the verse that he could not perceive how his material body became separated from self. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that for him, it was not like going from one body to another body in the womb of a mother, but it was like just leaving the body and going back to spiritual world. So he couldn't feel that there was a transition where he was giving up his body. So that's how Dadachi Muni, that's how he gave up his body. And then as we go through the verses, it says how then King Indra took the bones and made up took the thunderbolt, which was manufactured by Vishwakarma. And then this is how their uh, war begins. But I just thought I'll just go on because I'm conscious of the time and I don't want to go through all those details. But I wanted to share one more message. This is from text 28. And this is when the fight began with Vṛtrāsura, and when demigods were having a fight, demons were about to lose that battle. So the demons who were supporting Vṛtrāsura, they were about to flee. In fact, they were leaving um, the Vṛtrāsura, and they were about to run away from the battlefield. So in this text 28, it's interesting where this is also a lesson where for the devotees, where the translation of this verse is: when insignificant persons use rough words to cast false, angry accusations against saintly persons, their fruitless words do not disturb the great personalities. Similarly, all the efforts of the demons against the demigods who were favorably situated under the protection of Krishna were futile. And then this is the purport which Prabhupada is explaining on that translation. If anyone can read this, I think this is the last purport of the chapter.
Can I read it, please?
Yes, please, Mataji. Yeah.
Thank you. Danupnaja. There's a Bengali saying that if a vulture curses a cow to die, the curse will not be effective. Similarly, accusation made by demoniac person against devotee of Krishna cannot have any effect. The demigods are devotees of the Lord Krishna, and therefore the curses of the demon were futile.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So yeah, so it's interesting here. It's another lesson to learn from this, that sometimes people do get affected, devotees in their service of Krishna consciousness. They could sometimes they get accusations or blames or things like that. But in the text, in the translation, it's mentioned that any accusations against saintly persons do not has any effect. And Prabhupada is mentioning to some Bengali saying, I don't know which one is that, but is the translation Prabhupada says that if a vulture curses a cow to die, the curse will not be effective. So this way, similarly, acquisitions which demonic persons make against devotees of Krishna cannot have any effect. It's interesting to know this because to carry on in our services, sometimes difficulties come, sometimes challenges come, sometimes obstacles comes. But how one should continue in Krishna consciousness or in service, irrespective, without being disturbed or without being affected. It is so important that, like we were talking about sharing Krishna consciousness, we were talking about making sacrifices. But again, in this journey, it's not going to be that easy as it's said, because practically there could be difficulties, there could be challenges. But then when one understands that devotees are under the protection, and these things don't have any effect in the long run, and devotees are always under shelter of Krishna and protection. So this way, uh, we can always carry on in our Krishna consciousness, understanding that these things are temporary and one can overcome these things. So this way, when the battle was going on, so this so the asuras, they were about to leave. They were leaving their leader Vṛtrāsura. This was even in the very beginning of the fight. They decided to flee because they were getting because of course the demigods were quite powerful, and they were overpowering them. So when Vṛtrāsura saw this, that his army is broken and all of them are who are like great heroes who are fleeing the battlefield, he started speaking uh, to them, and this is nearly the end of the chapter, because from here the next chapter will begin, where Vṛtrāsura, actually the last verse, Vṛtrāsura is talking to them, and he says he's trying to encourage them of fighting in the battlefield. This instruction was quite similar to what Lord Krishna gave the instruction to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, where he says that everybody in this material world is going to die, but and nobody can avoid death. It is inevitable. But if one fights on the battlefield, then one can, and if one dies on the battlefield, then one can achieve the higher planets, heavenly planets, which Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita also. And the last verse is very important, where he is mentioned that there are two ways to meet a glorious death. One is to die after performing Bhakti Yoga, and the other one is to die on the battlefield. So that's why he's just trying to encourage uh, the demons of his army so that they continue and carry on. And there the chapter ends, where, of course, it will start with the next one, where we talk about the qualities of Vṛtrāsura. So I think this is a short summary of this chapter. There are many points which we can discuss, many more, but is there anything so far what we discuss anybody would like to add, which we might have missed out, or any questions? Let me see if there's, I think there's something in the chat.
That's me, Prabhu.
Okay.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, Dharmendra Prabhu. Thank you very much, your most kind. Dandavat pranams. Acyuta Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, I can hear you. Dandavat Pranam Prabhu.
Yes. In the purport, I read, because you asked for me to read,
Yes.
I see that the quote goes as follows, quote, "A beggar should not ask charity from a person who is in difficulty," close quote. So based on this quote, my question is, how will I know who is in difficulty and who is not in difficulty? For me, in the case that the person is in difficulty, to not ask charity from him or from her. And I am asking like this because, for example, President Trump in the United States of America, in a sense, he is a candidate for me to ask charity from him because he's very rich, multi-billionaire, I think. But at the same time, because he's the president of the United States of America, he is in difficulty because it's not easy for him to run a country. It's not easy for a human being to be the president of a country like the United States of America. So I'm so confused about this quote. So who is in difficulty and who is not in difficulty for me to ask or not ask charity from him or from her? That is my question.
That's a very good question, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much. That's really, I was also thinking on those lines when Prabhupada mentioned this and I was reading this. Now, my understanding on this is there are two ways to think on this. One way we can think that actually the reality is everybody is in difficulty. And this way, but if we think that way, then it will be difficult to ask from any person. Now, first of all, here it is mentioned a beggar, one who gives charity and one who begs for it. So beggar means one who really, really needs something for either himself or for somebody. Now, when somebody is asking, first and foremost, what is the intention behind asking, right? Of course, I think Vijay Krishna Prabhu, I understood your question. I understand you are asking from the point of asking for somebody to help in Krishna consciousness movement, right? Now, if that is the case, then Prabhupada says that we make our effort and then we leave it to Krishna, whether that person, that Paramatma in the heart, in his heart or her heart, whether Paramatma will inspire that person to give, right? So it's difficult for somebody to, of course, unless we don't know the whole picture. If we know the whole picture, then of course, if, for example, if you know somebody is in difficulty, you would not even go and ask that person in difficulty. But if you don't know, and if you're still asking, uh, then we just leave it to Krishna, whether that person feels inspired to give or not. And if the Paramatma is not inspiring that person, then person will not give, and then we can think that person is in difficulty. But otherwise, it's very hard to know the whole picture as far as we know the situation of the other person. But if we know the whole picture, then we can understand. And of course, if we won't ask, if we know the person is in difficulty, then we would not even ask for it. But not every time it will be possibility that you will know this. But then we, of course, we make our effort, and then we leave it to Krishna. That's if we are asking for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. If that's your, is that the question you were asking for? Is it related to Krishna consciousness, or?
Yes, yes, that was my question, and the answer you just gave, as to be expected, was very helpful, clarifying, and most beautiful. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vijay Krishna. Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, if anyone else has a question, please do ask. If I can ask a couple, if that's okay, whilst I'm waiting for hopefully a few more hands. Right at the beginning, you said something about we should not consume as much, but rather than give. And the example that always comes across is one should help themselves when on an aircraft rather than helping others. So that was my thought at the when you said that.
Yeah.
Because if you do consume, then you're able to give, if you know what I mean. By sort of not consuming, you then cannot become a giver.
Correct.
So it's that confusion in that point. That's the first question. I'll wait for the answer for that one, and then I'll say my second one.
Sure. No, you've absolutely correct, Dharmendra Prabhu. I think I definitely fully agree with you that if our cup is not full, we can't give to others. So definitely, but my point is that the consciousness, because sometimes it can become a habit where because Krishna conscious movement is like that. We keep getting. So it's when I said consume, it should not be that we are just only thinking about our own self. And even though if we are in a position to contribute, we should use that opportunity to contribute. But doesn't mean that we don't look after our own self, our own Krishna consciousness, our own chanting, our own sadhana, our own reading, our own advancement. Definitely, because once we have something to some degree, we will be in a position to help others in a better way. But then it should not be extreme where we are just looking for ourselves and not sharing anything or not helping others, or just trying to just help others but not looking after our own self. So there has to be, we have to find a balance, and that balance could be a challenge because sometimes we are swaying this direction, so sometimes we go in other direction. So we have to keep coming in the middle lane, keep coming in between, so that we can do both. And I think that's what will keep our Krishna consciousness going.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu. I'll come back with the second point after Shabina Mataji or Girish Prabhu. Over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Going back to Vijay Krishna Prabhu's question, Prabhu, the answer is that it's in Krishna consciousness. If you want to give Krishna consciousness, person wants to take it or not, we leave it on to the Krishna, right? But how in the outside Krishna consciousness, how does this work when it's a moral instruction of the Shastras that we should help beggars or whoever in need in the charity? So how that works, because obviously we don't know who is asking the money. Obviously they are beggar, they need the money.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of that money? We don't know. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I've heard as a purpose that we should not give money to the beggars and so on, right?
Yes.
How this correlate then, please, if you can.
Sure. So yeah, no, that's a good question, Prabhu. Girish Prabhu, thank you. So when we are talking about charity, we are not limiting the charity to the money only. So charity could be whatever the other person needs, whatever that person is requesting for or asking for. And as you rightly said, yes, in Krishna consciousness, we have heard this several times that giving straight away money might not be a good idea, because whatever way the money will be used, we don't know. But and that's why we talk about helping others on what they need. So in this situation, of course, and you must have heard, I'm sure you must have heard that how devotees do is they don't straight away give money, but they give what the person needs. So mostly it's like food, or I mean mostly it is food which the person is requiring for. So that's the charity. But ultimately, when we are talking about charity, the ultimate benefit, somehow we have to help everyone in such a way that they take one step closer to Krishna. So whether, and of course we have to be judge of that situation, that what is requirement of that particular situation. But ultimately we don't have to leave it there. We have to bring them, help them to that level where they get inspired in some way or form, that slowly they start taking steps towards Krishna. So yeah, to answer your question about money, definitely I agree. I think that's a very tricky and challenging thing, because if you are giving to a beggar who could be using money for drugs or alcohol or anything, then of course that's not a good idea, because then we are encouraging them in a wrong way, and our money will be used, and of course that also creates effects of karma on everybody. So that we have to be really careful of when we are giving charity. But again, it's time, place, and circumstances. We have to see what the situation is and go by it. And again, here also Krishna will help. It's outside Krishna consciousness, but Paramatma is sitting in our heart. Paramatma is sitting in the beggar's heart also. That's always there, whether it's Krishna conscious, whether the person is Krishna conscious or not. Prabhupada says everybody is Krishna conscious in some way or other. Everybody is God conscious in some way or the other. So Paramatma will help both. Paramatma will help us also, and Paramatma will help the other person also. We just have to pray and pray for the right direction and the right guidance. I know it's a bit tricky situation. Might not be a very straight answer to this, but
Indeed,
it all depends
Prabhuji.
on the
Yeah, I
situation.
now I understand it can't be a straight answer for this. Um, but I think you rightly said that. Obviously, if you give money, we don't know where it's going to use. But because we are giving for a charity or helping the others, so we're doing as a good deed sort of thing, right? As a good karma, basically. And if that beggar or whosoever is taking the charity from us might be using as a wrong purpose, um, maybe not, or maybe yes as well. So how it's tied with our karma, because we did a good deed, other person did something else.
Hmm.
So how it is tied with our karma that we get the bad karma out of that then?
Because we have, of course, our intention is definitely to help, but our help has been used to their activity. So if we had not helped them, they would not have able to commit that particular activity what they were planning to do. So in one sense, we became part of that. We contributed to their activity, knowingly or unknowingly. Of course, if our intention is quite pure and then a mistake happens, then because karma is very intricate, we can't it's not very straightforward. It's not like black and white, where either it's good or bad. It can be somewhere in between also. It could be a gray area also. But as much as possible from our side, we have to be very much alert. We should not slip into any kind of, any try not to do any mistakes. But even if we are most alert, things can happen. And then, of course, Krishna knows our intention, that that was not our intention to do. And it happened, which was beyond our understanding or control. Then it's a different thing. Hopefully, that way we
Yeah,
might be helped. But that doesn't mean that we should not be alert. We should definitely have to, because Krishna consciousness is all about, our spiritual life is all about being alert, about our intention, and about how much alert we are in executing our day-to-day activities, day-to-day Krishna consciousness, day-to-day whatever we are doing for pleasing Krishna. So, but again, not everything goes as per plan. Not
yeah,
everything goes as we think, because of course we are also limited in our understanding, in our intelligence, in our efforts. So somehow we have to leave it to Krishna.
sure. Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Kusum Mataji, I
Yeah,
believe that you've unmuted. Would you like to ask a question or?
yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the class. Just a couple of points. It says that, like how the demigods are devotees of the Lord. I mean, they have got to that position because of their devotional service. But here we see that the demigods, um, the demons are running away and the demigods are kind of killing them from the back, you know. And also, like Indradev, you know, he did two mistakes, isn't it? He disrespected his spiritual master and by not acknowledging. And then, yeah, it's like, you know, and then Indradev, you know, he got cursed, and then he passes down the curse to other people, like the earth, water, etc. So it's like, how should we behave? Because
Yeah.
we claim to be devotees.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting point, Mataji. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, if you will, if in the next chapter, when we discuss about Vṛtrāsura, that's the time where we will be sharing these points. You'll be hearing on these points that it's mentioned by devotees that actually, like you said, it's the other way around. The demigods uh, were behaving like sorry, I'm just charging my. They were behaving like demons, and demons were doing like because they were giving higher messages or things like that. So that's quite interesting. But ultimately, the principle remains the same. The What Prabhupada is mentioning here is the divine qualities, what makes somebody as a devotee of Krishna. It's not about rubber stamping somebody or putting a label on somebody. Somebody who looks to be a Asura, or there's a name of Asura, but they would be displaying the qualities of demigods. So ultimately, it's the quality which matters. It's the consciousness which matters. So yes, we have seen, and a lot of times this point has come up that Indra has, like we were discussing, that how he um, disrespects his spiritual master, and that's why he gets into this situation. That's why he gets into difficulty, and that's why this war is happening. So ultimately, this war also is happening because of Indra's deeds, which were not in line with what a devotee should be doing. And so if you see, it also happens as a result of what somebody does. So it's also, you can say, a result of the activities what Indra did, which, like disrespecting spiritual master or killing a brahmana. Ultimately, he had to end up fighting, having a battle, which was also difficult for him. So I think what matters here is our intention, is our consciousness, and that's what will make us a devotee, not just demigod, not just having some material opulences for demigod will be a devotee. The devotees are recognized by their nature, their qualities, their intentions. So it's always like that, and these things actually teach us that we have to be so careful that it's not like once a devotee, always a devotee. It's not like that. It's not that that's why we can't rubber stamp ourselves. It's a daily challenge to be a devotee. Every day we have to be conscious of what we are doing. We have to be conscious. We have to keep asking. I read this somewhere that they say, if you want to check your intention, ask this question why 5 times. So just ask that why I'm doing this. And if you come this answer, I'm doing this because I want this. So why I want this? I want this because why so we keep asking why, so that we keep checking on our intention, because sometimes we just get lost in so many things, and then we think, okay, I'm a devotee, so it's okay to do this, it's okay to do that. But by these lessons of Indra, these are the teachings to us. It's not that Indra is like that, but this is what we have to learn from their experiences. So it's important that we should try and keep our intention, because we can slip anytime. In Krishna consciousness, it can be slippery. Mind is very slippery. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that mind is very, very slippery. So we can slip anytime. So we have to be this shows that if Indra can make mistakes, who are we, to Do not do that. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's a long-winded thing, but it's ultimately we have to be our own judge, and we have to be careful in what we are doing. It's about our own self rather than others. In Krishna consciousness. I don't know if that helps, Kusum Mataji, or do you have any point yourself to share on this?
You're on mute, Mataji. Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that we have to, because I mean, demigods have been practicing the Krishna consciousness for a longer time than we have. But then also demigods want to take birth in this Kali Yuga because, just by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, they can go back to Godhead. So, yeah, we need to keep check on ourselves constantly, because actually we are not devotees. We are aiming to be, aspiring. So, yeah, it's a good lesson not to make the same mistakes. Like, we should respect our spiritual partner, and we should commit our practice, devotees, etc. Because all the devotees are like Brahmanas. So we have to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for your question.
Vanita Mataji, I saw you were unmuted, so did you want to ask a question, or Vanita Mataji?
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Indaleka Mataji, would you like to ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this nice discourse. I just want to add to the question of Kusuma Mataji. In Bhagavatam, all through Bhagavatam, we get so many examples, like Dhruv Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, and so many, right? And Krishna is giving us these good devotees as good examples. And he's using his devotee, who is Indra, also to teach us that what we should not be doing.
Correct.
Why he's in the Bhagavatam, otherwise he would not be in the Bhagavatam. Correct. And Indra has been doing these things time and again. If we see, he associated with Ahalya, the wife of Gautama Muni in Ramayana. And then he stole the horses of Prithu Maharaj. And then now and then we see he's coming, just like Narad Muni is coming to teach us good. Indra is also coming to teach us good, but in a negative way. Now it's up to us to decide, because the Lord is saying this, so and so have done this, but you should not be doing it. Correct. You should follow the correct path. That is a lesson here. Yes. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, man. That's perfectly summarized. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say as well, that things which we should not be doing are also here. Just what we should do is equally important as what we should not do. So it's definitely, these are the lessons which keep us alert, and because we need that reminders, because it's very, very tricky when we are dealing with in material world. There's a possibility, high chance of having mistakes, committing mistakes or committing sinful activities. So through these exalted personalities, we learn for our own benefit.
Actually, just to add one comment is that demigods were in the material world. Forget that. That demigods are in the world, and they're prone to things what we are. They're devotees, we are devotees, but because of their
Sorry, Mataji, it's just me at my end, or is it?
No, Mataji, I think we're finding it very difficult to hear from you. So if you get near the speaker, that would be.
Yeah, I'm near the. It's just, I was going to say that
I think it might be better to put it on the chat, if that's okay, Mataji. We're just losing yourself for a moment there, if that's okay. And while we're waiting for yourself, Mataji, I'll ask my follow-up question, if that's okay, unless anyone else wishes to ask. What I wanted to ask is that, on a regular basis, we hear, and initially you were talking about serving others, and the more we give, the more we get. we should be in that mood.
Yeah.
Now, when we're looking at this particularly, we're seeing that the demigods were scared that their opulence would be given up to the demons in this instance, in this example. But what we hear is that everything belongs to Krishna, and so the demigods are devotees of Krishna, and so shouldn't they actually be in that mood, saying, "Well, this belongs to Krishna, so if the demons want it, it won't make a difference because it doesn't belong to them in any case." So what I don't understand is that why did they wish to acquire that when their whole mood should be that it doesn't belong to us anyway? So
yeah. No, that's important. The thing is, which my understanding is, first of all, demigods, like if you see a lot of time Prabhupada mentions that demigods are very much into enjoyment in material opulences. So it is natural for somebody in that situation to feel protective of their things. The more material possessions you have, the tendency. That's why if you see devotees, they're also called as renunciant because they don't like to have much things. That's how devotees are. But on the other side, what I can see is demigods it might look like they are feeling insecure on this, but it could also be on the other hand, they could be trying to protect from demons. So it's not just about them having, but it's also they're trying to stop it from having from demons, because if demons get empowered, then again demigods will be in a difficult position where demons will rule over them. So it's not just about them being insecure, but I think it's also them being protective of their own situation, not going towards the demons, not making them empowered by what they could be. But yeah, the way to take it in our Krishna consciousness is we are devotees try to be detached from what they want or what they would like to keep, but at the same time we also have to be protective and do the right thing in terms of Krishna consciousness. What should be the right thing to do. So it's not that devotees are very passive or devotees don't take any action. It's according to, again, time, place, and circumstances devotees act upon. And so there are situations where Prabhupada was completely not taking any action, and there are past times where Prabhupada was full on, like for example in this Juhu temple episode and things like that. So I think Vijay Krishna Prabhu wants to add something on that.
yeah, before we go to sorry, before I go to you, Prabhu, I'll just quickly read what Krishna Mataji's just put on the chat anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so she's put, demigods are also in the material world prone to 4 defects, same as us. So we should use the examples to learn and not to make same mistakes. So that's what Krishna Mataji was wanting to convey. Okay, Vijay Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, very quickly. I would like to add to the wonderful answer that Acyuta Prabhu gave to your answer, Dharmendra Prabhu, and your answer was a very smart answer, if I may say it, and inspires me to add the following. Okay, my body, given to me by Krishna in the ultimate sense, belongs to him. So why should I brush my teeth today before going to bed? If it belongs to him, let him brush my teeth. But that, as Acyuta Prabhu just explained, that is not how the devotee operates. Exactly because he knows that the body was given to him by Krishna. He thinks, the devotee thinks, that it is his moral duty to please Krishna by protecting the body for the purpose of engaging the body in more and better devotional service. That is the train of thought of a devotee, and we know the demigods are devotees of Lord Krishna. That's why most of the times they fight because the purpose of the demons is to destroy each and everything. And it is the moral duty of the demigods to protect what belongs to Krishna for it to be used in more and better devotional service. That is the moral obligation of the demigods.
Yeah.
And this is in complete harmony with the answer Acyuta Prabhu just gave to your question, Dharmendra Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Wonderful, Vijay Prabhu. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is all about our consciousness. This is all about our intention. That's it. All boils down. Krishna consciousness boils down to our intention, and I think it's a daily test to check on our intention, because the point where we think our intention is 100% pure, we will be tested and we will realize that we still have to make some more improvements and more betterment to our intention. So yeah, I think wonderful. Srimad Bhagavatam, these pastimes, these stories are so wonderful that we can churn them so much and learn from so much. And especially in the association of devotees, it really enhances when you're reading it alone. But when we're reading with all the devotees and studying with devotees, it really benefits. And I really felt a lot of benefit today. So thank you so much, Dharmendra Prabhu, for giving me this opportunity to